the BBC has proved itself incapable of sticking to its original purpose. Endless copycat shows in which they tried to compete with ITV and Channel 4, inflated talent wages, a virtue signalling politically correct agenda, and a lingering feeling that the BBC is anti-Brexit and has a left-wing bias. The bottom line is the BBC will only be popular and have the support of the people that pay for it, which is you and me, if it's genuinely seen to be neutral and offering a balanced overview on both sides of the political debate. It has to be neutral because we all pay for it and we all think different things. It's not complicated. We don't pay the BBC to tell us what to think. We pay the BBC to help us think. The latest extraordinary memo from the Director General encourages staff to use whatever pronoun reflects how they identify as a man or a woman. Well, I've got a few pronouns to describe this nonsense, and none of them are broadcastable on a family show. The BBC is a valuable national institution, just like the NHS, but it needs to be taken in hand now, as it has proved incapable of representing every man, woman and child in this country. So at the next available opportunity, I would suggest a radical overhaul in which strict rules are laid out about political neutrality. I would refocus their television and radio content into less commercial but culturally viable work. Orchestras, educational output, children's TV, documentaries, new writing, undiscovered emerging talent. The next generation of British creatives of all colours, races, wealth and background. The Oxbridge elite and voices from our poorest communities. I'm pitching that we have both, right? Not either, but both. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Emma Thompson, John Cleese, Alan Bennett, all geniuses, went to Oxford. So please, let's not cut off our noses to spite our face. And finally, I would slash the inflated wages of their frontline talent, some of whom earn in excess of £1 million a year to discuss a football match or read news headlines from an auto cue. I'm proposing a maximum wage for any presenter of £150,000 a year, which would be an amazing reduction in so many salaries, half of whom you've probably never heard of, and a maximum wage for any senior management of £75,000. And that should cover the cost of Seamus and Diane's licence fee. And I would scrap the licence fee altogether. I would pay for the BBC out of general taxation. That way, we the people would have more control over its output. And it must therefore serve all of us in exactly the way that the NHS absolutely does. The coronavirus pandemic, it's been a rude awakening for everyone. Organisations across the land, we'll be talking about it on the show today, how the high street's having to adapt. Every company, every group, every organisation, every employee is having to work smart and completely rethink their business model. It's time for the BBC to wake up and smell their skinny soya decaf lattes and do the same. Because if they don't change and become what they're supposed to be, the nation's broadcaster, then defund the BBC will go from being an online campaign to reality. Now, I'm privileged to be here for the next 3 hours. It's all about your thoughts and views and opinions, and I will try to represent all of you. I'm proud to say that I don't cost you a penny. Talk Radio doesn't cost you a penny. I even paid for this haircut myself. I have asked for a refund. This is Talk Radio. It's a busy 3 hours. Let's go.
They sort of have a reputation for just being, use a dreadful cliche, they're so woke. They are so out of touch with real people out there in the country listening to this show who don't live in North London.
Well, exactly right. I think Brexit must be a good case in point, Neil. I've always been very clear, and when you and I broadcast together in the company of the fabulous Julia Hartley-Brewer in the mornings, giving our reaction to the papers, you know, I've always been upfront that I voted to remain in the European Union. Once the decision made that we were going, that was it. You know, I'm on board because I'm a Democrat, and it's not the BBC's job to like or dislike Brexit, to like or dislike Boris. The bottom line is they're supposed to be neutral because we all pay for the BBC.
Well, that's precisely the point. That they have catastrophically managed to mislay very badly their neutrality. They have fallen. I don't think they're alone in this, but the truth is, the BBC is arguably, certainly in broadcast terms, the most important media outlet in this country, and they have simply mislaid the sense of neutrality. They have fallen into what you might call gotcha journalism, and all you hear is a constant attempt to, whatever the subject is, if it's to do with the pandemic, to do with the government, is to do the establishment down. And I have to confess, I used to be an addicted listener to the Today programme, for instance, on Radio 4. I don't listen to it anymore because all it is a constant litany of attack and denigration of Boris Johnson and this government. And, you know, Mark, this afternoon there's been a YouGov opinion survey, and the actual government standing has gone up. You know, despite all the attacks, despite the new Labour leader, they are now 10 points clear of Labour at a time when they ought to be 20 points ahead. And that's because the great British public out there has stopped listening to the doommongers of the BBC.
Well, indeed, as one of the country's leading former tabloid journalists and editors, Neil, you had to stay in touch with your audience. Otherwise, your circulation would drop. And I just have a deep sense that the BBC have really lost the room. How do they win it back? Because the bottom line is, unless the BBC starts to feel like a broadcast and online news platform for everyone, it's not going to survive.
You know, one of the biggest lessons I ever learned as a newspaper editor through 30 years of working in national newspapers, you can have the greatest idea on the planet, you believe. You can have a cast iron campaign idea, but if the readers don't like it, you cannot persuade them. You cannot get them to believe something they don't instinctively believe. The BBC has lost sight of that. And it really has to go back to that thing about not taking a position. And one of the problems you've got is the BBC is stacked by people it wants to listen to it. So it's stacked by people who are in their late 20s and early 30s. They've all been to university. They've all come from a nice inner city middle class background. And they're all talking to each other. What they're not doing is talking to anybody in Derby. They're not talking to anybody in Basingstoke. They're not talking to anybody in Penzance, Scotland, and they're just talking to themselves, and that's the deadliest disease in.
The biggest names in journalism speak to Talk Radio. Neil Wallis, thank you so much for your time. Media commentator, former newspaper editor, a true icon of Fleet Street.